Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest and live edition of Dodgers Territory. I am Alanna Rizzo. That is Clint Pasillas, and we're going to change things up a little bit today, Clint. We're going to go ahead and kick things off with Behind the Seams. And my friends, you can take a victory lap.
We'll see. Let's get into Behind the Seams.
Are you a little nervous?
I thought I was waiting for a front end. I wasn't 100% sure, but let's talk. Something happening? Do I have extra music somewhere? What's going on? Our pets' heads are falling off, but the Dodgers are playing well. That's the important thing. Listen, it's all live, guys. Things happen, but the Dodgers are playing well. We were going to maybe take a victory lap on the Gavin Lux situation. Gavin Lux, of course, struggling a little bit to open his season. Miguel Rojas in short time far out performing Gavin Lux at the plate. But then Gavin goes and decides to have himself a hell of a game on Wednesday, drops a couple of hits, playing really, really nice defense at second base. It looks like maybe some changes in the stance, in the swing, and maybe, just maybe, my almost victory lap as I do the Kermit the Frog. We have the graphic there on the screen, my tweet of sipping the tea from my friend Blake Harris's tweet. Gavin could be figuring some things out as it goes in baseball.
Here's my theory on this, though, Clint. I think that the reason that you're seeing these numbers from Gavin is because he has so much pressure to perform, to prove that he belongs at the big league level on a consistent basis. He wants to show them that the draft pick, that the opportunity to be the starting shortstop last year prior to the injury, that the opportunity to put him in the lineup every single day is not a mistake. Miguel Rojas, a much more seasoned player, a much more veteran player, doesn't have that same type of pressure on him. So he's not going to press as much. Miguel's going to make the most that he can with the time that he has because he's already gotten a relatively large contract. He already knows that his place in this game is as a utility player. He's not going to be your everyday guy. Gavin is still young enough where he wants to be the everyday guy. And at that draft pick and with those expectations, he's supposed to be an everyday guy. I mean, is there something to be said for that in terms of the numbers and the production that we're seeing from both of those guys in the time that they're given?
Well, I mean, we saw that with Miguel Rojas last year, kind of pressed into everyday duty with the injury to Lux, and he did struggle. He was coming off of a wrist injury, had a few things working against him, did turn it on in the second half of the season, later in the season, but with Lux, admittedly, he's got a lot of things going on for him. He is coming off of a major knee injury, major knee surgery, has not played baseball, consistently for the better part of a year. I think the pieces are starting to fall a little bit for him now, and these two guys with Lux and Rojas right now, the Dodgers don't want to call it. Dave Roberts does not want to call it a platoon. It is a platoon. That's what we're seeing. Gavin is not playing against or starting against left-handed starters, and maybe that's helping him kind of get a little bit on track. Some swing changes we've seen in the box, in the stance. So I think we're trending in the right direction. And admittedly, I've been very, very harsh on Gavin over the years because there is a lot of that. I agree with you, Alanna. There's a lot of that pressure. There's a lot of things that come with being that high draft pick, all of the pomp and circumstance that I'm sure you remember in 2019 when he made that debut. And we've seen flashes of the brilliance, but we need him. The Dodgers need him to be consistent and run with what they're giving him right now because Dave said they're going to give him a long runway.
And he deserves it. And the reason I say that is because I remember when back a million years ago, probably before you were even born, I was covering the university. I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, right? So I was covering the University of Wisconsin. I was covering the Brewers, the Packers, the Bucks, this, that, and the other thing. And I remember hearing about Gavin Lux when he was itty bitty, like coming up. And then he's, a Kenosha, Wisconsin kid, not a year-round baseball state, obviously. So he comes with some high expectations. So the leash is going to be long, at least to give him an opportunity to prove, like, this is why I was a high draft pick. This is why the Dodgers saw me as their starting shortstop. All right, so we had a tweet here. If we can get that back up, Jeremy, I'd appreciate that because we always appreciate you guys participating in our Dodgers territory conversation. Before we get into the job that Knack did, Vince Rodriguez, dude, I'd rather have who? Who is that?
Austin Gauthier. He's
Gauthier. Is he French? Oui.
Yeah, he's been tearing it up. I think he's at AAA right now. He's hitting the cover off the ball. The Dodgers have a few guys hitting the cover off the ball, which makes it a little bit tougher to watch Lux flounder. But again, Lux deserves his time. It's very early in the season. Hey, you look at the standings, the Dodgers are in first place. They can afford these kind of opportunities, especially when everybody else is hitting on all cylinders now.
Again, the thing is, too, though, you look at the fact, and I'm going to continue to bring up Jackson Holliday when I talk about this stuff, because the guy, number one prospect in all of baseball, I think he has 2 hits so far in the big leagues. It's not easy, people. It is not like you're going to come up here and automatically be in the Hall of Fame or be an all-star. And Justin has this to say, look at what Carroll, Witt, and Volpe have accomplished in less amount of time as Lux. I get it. I get it. Corbin Carroll was the Rookie of the Year last year. Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals just had signed a massive contract. I mean, I understand, but again, a lot of pressure. I'm gonna give Gavin Lux the benefit of the doubt that he's gonna figure this out, because there's obviously something there. And I don't like the fact that every time he goes, for something, he's probably looking over his shoulder, right? Like, someone's coming for my job. That's a lot of pressure. I feel that way for him. And Miguel Rojas doesn't have that same type of pressure. But one kid that we can brag about, obviously Landon Knack picking up his first big league win. What'd you see from him?
I like what we're seeing from Landon Knack in his first 2 big league starts. He's getting himself into trouble, but most importantly, he's pitching his way out of trouble. Yes, yesterday, the Wednesday game, he did walk in a run, but after that, mostly kept the wheels on the bus, and that's where this team is at right now. They just need some dudes that are going to show up, keep the wheels on the bus. 6 innings from the kid, 3 hits. Of course, he's going to walk some guys. He did walk the bases loaded, walks that run in, but I like what I'm seeing out of Landon Knack, and another one of those guys that comes with a lot of expectations. He was a relatively high draft pick, all things considered. Dodgers don't draft very, very high all the time, but kind of had his ups and downs in the minor leagues. Sort of had a breakout last year, and he's riding it to his first career win with the Dodgers now, the first career win as a big leaguer. Love to see that, and you hope he got the beer shower. You hope he got everything thrown on him in the locker room. But this dude's kind of been a steadying force in only 2 starts, something this team is very much needed.
And I love the fact that he settled down. You mentioned it a little bit. I mean, he ended up getting the last 13 batters, retiring that he faced. I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good for a young kid. I mean, just don't start him in the first inning. Just start him in like the third. We'll just have an opener for the first couple of innings. But you know what? It's Landon Knack stepping up when they needed some depth. It's also a veteran in Daniel Hudson stepping up. And that's a guy, again, that's kind of going to be like an accordion. We're going to use you when we need you and kind of smash you back down when we don't. But Daniel Hudson proved to be, another benefit to bringing him back to the Dodgers.
Yeah, veteran leader this team has absolutely needed in the bullpen at this point in time. Gotta love Danny Hudson coming back from missing the better part of 2 years with knee injuries. Thought about hanging up the spikes this offseason to now be essentially a massively important piece. This was a minor league signing in the offseason, and being a massively important piece, kind of bridging the gap through some injuries with Blake Trinan, with Brusdar Graterol, who's going to be missing more time. So a lot of things. Hey, we talked about it on Monday, that Sunday game being a get-right game. Now we can say they got right, and they got right in these 2 games. And one guy who has very much been right, we'll call him the greatest showman. We got to talk Shohei Ohtani, guys.
Oh, I love this. The greatest showman. By the way, before we get into Shohei really quick, I do want to say you were the one that said, we'll see if they win a couple of these games on the road, it'll be more of like that Sunday game at home was a get right game. And it looks like they are proving you right. So Shohei Ohtani, Clint, we were talking about this earlier on our production call. He has sneakily, quietly been the best in baseball in almost every single offensive category. And I'm thinking this guy's getting off to a slow start. Everybody was waiting for him to hit his first home run as a Dodger. Then he's first in almost every category that matters.
Yeah, I guess you can justify a $700 million contract, and we will be talking.
I don't know about that, but
sorry, $2 million contract. He is only getting poor Shohei getting $2 million a year for the next 10 years. But we will be talking more Shohei coming up in a little bit, guys, with our guest, Andy McCullough, who should be joining us very, very soon. But since hitting that homer. I think I had the number somewhere else. Shohei posting an OPS over 1,300 since hitting that first home run at Dodger Stadium. The batting average over 470, I think, at this point. Of course, entering play on Thursday. This dude is pretty flippin' good at baseball, and I love watching him. I love watching this guy every single day. I know that's not really breaking news there, but he is fun to watch play baseball.
One thing that's crazy too is if you look at the top 10 hardest hit balls by Dodgers this year, Shohei Ohtani has 9 of them and James Outman has 1. It's insane. It's like a bunch of Shohei's heads, and then Outman's like right in the middle. So it's like Ohtani, 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 Outman, Ohtani, 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 Ohtani. Andy McCullough is getting ready to join us here, but Fabian Ardaya said the same thing. He's like, it's the hardest hit ball, period, by a Dodger by nearly 3 miles per hour. I mean, the kid just smashes the ball. He just absolutely rakes, and it is awesome to see him. Again, very quietly, because Shohei is quiet, very quietly continuing to be one of the best to play in this game. Sarah Langs, the great Sarah Langs. Ohtani already had 2 unanimous MVPs and is off to his best start through 26 games, which is insane. He could be on his way to his 3rd MVP. And here I was thinking, like, when's Ohtani going to get going? Well, Rizzo, he's gotten going. He's gone.
Yeah, he is full tilt. We are seeing the best of Shohei Ohtani. And that was one of those things you kind of hoped with Shohei Ohtani, just focusing on the hitting this season, was you could see the best of Shohei. And I believe we 100% are. But let's continue that conversation with our guest, the Athletics senior writer, senior graded everything, Andy McCullough. Set us up better than I did, Alanna.
Andy McCullough does a tremendous job writing for The Athletic. Of course, Dodger fans know him well. Kansas City Royals fans know him well. He was there in the heyday, the Ned Yost, Eric Hosmer day of the Kansas City Royals, and now he's doing a tremendous job as one of the lead writers for The Athletic. And oddly enough, somehow Andy McCullough was able to get Clayton Kershaw to agree to do a book on him. It is available for pre-order now. It's available on May 7th, which is coming up in just a week. It's called The Last of His Kind, Clayton Kershaw by Andy McCullough. Andy, thanks for being with us, and congratulations on this. I have to ask you first, how did you get Kersh, who can be a little prickly, how did you get Kersh to agree to do this? Because he's not a guy that likes to talk about himself.
Yeah, I will say, I don't want to betray his confidence too much, but he did, I sent him an early copy, and he did tell me today he does not plan on reading it. So,
not surprised.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, on the one hand, I think he is a fairly private person and a fairly, guarded person, but he's also very available in that, he has times built into his schedule where he's available to talk to the media basically every day. And so, it's not like a hard person to find per se. And I, in May of 2022, I live in New York now. I used to live in LA, but I flew to LA and I approached him and basically just told him, hey, look, I think that, I'm interested in writing a book about you. I think, your career is worthy of kind of like a, full scale sort of biographic treatment. I think the book will be better if you participate. I'm going to try and do it either way, but I think it would be better if you're part of it. And he was like, okay, yeah, sounds good. And, it wasn't like a big negotiation. There was no discussion with, agents or handlers or anything like that. I mean, he kind of just, he agreed to it, went home, and I think talked to his wife, Ellen, and, she was on board. And yeah, it was pretty straightforward. I think that he understood that at some point someone was going to try and write a book about him. And it was probably better to, at least have his voice in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we know, Andy, that you interviewed more than 200 people. That's what it tells us when you're reading about this book. Did you uncover anything that was kind of unexpected when you're researching Clayton Kershaw this deep?
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't know about, that hadn't been reported about. I don't know how much, too much. I want to spoil per se. I'm not good at this, if you couldn't already tell. There was a time in the minor leagues when he flipped his car, and had a very scary accident, driving home from visiting his girlfriend, now wife, at Texas A&M, that I'd never heard about. It's never been reported. I think, what was the most interesting for me really was spending time with him in this past year in 2023 as he was dealing with the shoulder injury, as he was dealing with, just how challenging it was to pitch last year, and kind of having an inside look at like what it is like, what it requires to be at his level, what it requires physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all that, to be as equipped as he is every fifth day to compete, and the stresses on him, that places. I found that to just be really, really fascinating, I guess.
He's on his way to Cooperstown, Andy. I don't think there's anybody that can think otherwise. If they do, they need their head examined, and they've not been paying attention to what Kershaw's done over the last decade and change. Hopefully, though, we see him on the hill again prior to that. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, his hope is to be back in July or August. He's coming back from obviously major shoulder surgery. Capsule surgery is no joke. It's a real, several times during this process. So, I thought to myself, like, man, most pitchers kind of get capsule surgery and they get a real estate license, and he's kind of decided to, he decided to just go under the knife and try and come back. And so, it feels dumb to bet against him, at the same time, like it's a huge surgery, and it's gonna be a challenge to come back from. But he's hopeful to be back this summer. He's kind of on track, but hasn't been pitching in games or anything like that, and is still sort of building up the strength. And so I suspect he will be back. What's he gonna look like? Who can say? I mean, he had a fairly destroyed shoulder last year and had the second lowest ERA in baseball besides Blake Snell among guys with like 130 innings. So like, he obviously is still very, very good at this. It's just kind of a matter of like, physically what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, we know Clayton does not want that last image of him on the mound to be that game one start against Diamondbacks and the NLDS. I don't think anybody wants that to be the situation. Clayton has been kind of a master of reinventing himself. We've seen the velo kind of drop. We've seen him really lean on that. We'll call it a slider because he hates calling it a cutter. But he's adapted. He's adjusted. I love what you call the title of the book, The Last of His Kind, because that is a perfect title. He is somebody that will adjust with the game and with his body, even when that shoulder is falling off. We know Clayton is somebody that was kind of reluctant to get into the analytic game, kind of get behind that in front of the Edgertronic camera and all that. I'm sure you got a little bit from Kershaw about his feelings, his thoughts on analytics. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's anti-analytics per se. I think that it's very difficult to get him to change what he wants to do. Like, for example, the first year that Andrew Friedman and Farhan Zaidi were in charge of the Dodgers, the spring of 2015, they met with every player on the 40-man roster, and they basically made these presentations. It was like strengths and weaknesses, and so they sit with Kershaw. He just won the MVP. He'd had one of the best seasons in modern baseball history in terms of pitching, and they're going through all the pluses and strengths, and the strikeouts, controls the running game, throws strikes, blah blah blah, like the limits damage, and then in like could improve. They had maybe you could throw your curveball a little bit more, and Kershaw just goes, yeah, that'll never happen. And that he's just, he's a stubborn person, but I think the stubbornness is part of what makes him great. And one of the challenges, I think, and one of the things that is charted through this book is like how to stay ahead of the curve, how to stay elite and change while not losing sight of who you are. And so I don't want to like too much disagree. Like, you described him as like a master of evolution. Like, I think it's early in the book. There's like a little nugget where he was talking to his wife Ellen, and they were talking about Zach Greinke, and Kershaw was saying something effective like, Zach reinvents himself every 3 to 5 years, and new sequences, all this new stuff. And she was like, well, you don't do that at all. And he's like, no, I'm just trying to figure out how to make what I do keep working. And what he does is he throws fastballs and sliders gloves side down, and that's it. That's what he does. And it's like, he has done that basically for 16 years. And there's other variants to it. He changes things. There's curveball stuff. But that's really what it's about, is fastballs and sliders, glove side down. And like, he kind of just sticks to the strengths and is still waiting essentially for the industry to be able to catch up to it.
Man, I'm looking at these videos from the 2020
Oh,
World
wow.
Series, which is just it was so incredible to be there and such a weird year to do it in. And, obviously, Andy, as you know, every year this team is put together to win it again. So let's talk about the current Dodgers. Obviously, we hope Kershaw's back in the summer, but Shohei Ohtani, obviously one of the best in the game to ever do it. What has been your thought about how he has integrated himself into the clubhouse, into the team, and just talk about one of his kind, just how special he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you guys were talking a little bit about like you were saying something to the effect like kind of waiting for him to get going. And I was kind of thinking that like relatively recently too. And then I checked his baseball reference and it's like he's got a 1200 OPS. It's just kind of like he's had some spots with like runners in scoring position where he hasn't come through, and you're like, oh, I don't know. But then you look up and you're like, he's hitting 375. Yeah, I mean, I think to be doing what he's doing at the plate at a time when like he was, basically at the center of this massive scandal for like a month, and had the person who was effectively his one sort of known friend in the world to find out to have, betrayed him to the, to the extent that Ipe Mizuhara allegedly did. I mean, it hasn't affected him at all on the field, which is just sort of, it says a lot at the very least about his ability to compartmentalize,
Mm-hmm.
and to separate, whatever is going on outside the ballpark. And I think as we've learned in the past month, we have no idea what's going on outside the ballpark with Ohtani. So it's not even, whatever. And I think it's an interesting process where, he's trying to integrate himself into the Dodgers clubhouse. At the same time, it's like, look, there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of, really talented, really, prolific sort of players who are kind of doing their thing. Freddie Freeman knows what he needs to do when he comes to the ballpark. Mookie Betts knows what he needs to do when he comes to the ballpark. Ohtani's in that same bucket where it's like he shows up and he knows the 5-6 things he has to do to get ready. And so, sometimes that is a solitary pursuit, as it were. But I think in the past, week, 2 weeks, the coaches, Dave Roberts, they've been a little bit more proactive about, trying to talk to him about, various things with his approach, with mechanics, all that stuff. I mean, they're in this weird place where they're like fascinating by him, clearly, but they're also trying to make him better, or at least trying to help him, optimize. And, it's gonna be really interesting to watch to see if, he can even level up even more as a hitter, because he's obviously like, he's pretty freakish right now.
A couple of other questions, really quickly for me. Do you think, or do you subscribe to the thought that he should just focus on hitting and not worry about pitching?
I mean, I wrote about this maybe last year. Like, I was pretty convinced, like, when he came into the league, is like, he's not going to be able to do this. Like, he's going to get hurt. And like, hey, look, I was right. No, never mind the stuff that happened in those years when he was, Babe Ruth and a 12-win player, all that sort of stuff. So like, look, yeah, it's pretty clear his body can't do both. Like, it's just the body's providing the answer. However, you're gonna tell him no, like you're gonna say no, don't do this. Like, he's shown that he can do it. Now, can he do it long term? Obviously not. He's had 2 elbow reconstructions in the past 6 years. That said, like, if he's able to come back and pitch, give you 100 innings in addition to what he's doing at the plate, yeah, it seems worthwhile to do it. But if he's going to be like a 1200 OPS DH, like, yeah, I almost would rather have that. I don't know. It's a, as Dave Roberts would say, it's a high class problem,
I mean,
I don't know.
yeah, you could have a 900 OPS, at the plate, and you could also have yourself 12 wins and 20
Sure.
starts. You don't know how. I guess really that is more of the question. They signed him to this massive deal, 10 years, $700 million. I think most Dodgers fans really want to see him do both for the entirety of his career as a baseball guy. You're somebody who's watched this game, covered this game for a long time now. What is that in the realm of reality? Like, do we see him pitching and hitting into age 39, age 40?
I mean, my instinct is no, but like I think this was the same thing I was referencing. Like, he's expanded the understanding of what is possible, that humans can do, like, on a baseball field, right? Like if you had talked about this 10 years ago, you'd be like, no, a human being cannot do that. Well, he's demonstrated that it can be done. He's put together, 3 seasons where he was able to do both at such an elite level. So while the sort of logic and the actuarial tables and the basic, just facts of coming back from, a second Tommy John or elbow reconstruction or whatever the heck they're saying the surgery is, a brace or something. I don't know. His elbow is really messed up. The basic facts of that, suggest that he can't do it, but he's proven people wrong his entire career, and I am sure the Dodgers will give him a chance to do it again next year.
Where were you when there was Toronto Ohtani gate? I don't know that there has been an off season. I remember vividly when we were all together. I think it was in San Diego at the winter meetings, the year that the Dodgers signed Kenley Jansen to the extension, Justin Turner to the extension, and they signed Rich Hill. And I remember like Dylan Hernandez like this, just couldn't handle anything. I mean, there was so much going on. So what did you think about the fiasco of just kind of where is Ohtani going to sign?
I don't know. I mean, I think that it's that was a very strange day. I was where was I? I was with my family for early Christmas. I have a very large family, and so we all have various significant others, and so my family likes to do Christmas like 2 weeks ahead of time, I guess. So we were down the Jersey Shore together, and so I told my mom, I was like, "Hey, sorry, I can't really come to dinner right now. I have to make phone calls for a little while." But yeah, a really bizarre story. I think I found Ohtani's insistence on privacy or whatever the heck was going on, the industry's just absolute terror about discussing his free agency to be just silly. And I actually thought it was refreshing, even if he didn't necessarily mean to do it on purpose, for Dave Roberts to come out and say, yeah, we met with Ohtani. We'd like to sign him. He's the best player in the world.
Obviously.
Yeah, I just, I know that was not Dave's intention to make a huge scene out of that, but I did appreciate it. So yeah, I found the process to be just kind of a bit silly, and that day was by far the silliest, I would say. The Blue Jays should have that the Shark Tank guy throw out the first pitch this weekend. That would be funny.
The most famous plane. We got John Boy waking up early in the morning to put together Plane Gate or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
That was a funny day, and it was a great day for all Dodgers fans. The next day, where Shohei did what everybody thought what he was going to do, he broke the news himself on Instagram. Right. Now he is a Dodger for life, and you know what? That plane is on its way to Toronto after this final game.
For real.
In Washington, and it is for real. This is not a drill, guys. It is for real.
Yeah. Good
Andy,
time.
what was the most rewarding thing about putting this book together? And again, you can get it now. You can pre-order it. It's available May 7th. The Last of His Kind, Clayton Kershaw, and The Burden of Greatness, written by the great Andy McCullough. What do you take away from this as your most proud moment?
I mean, just kind of getting to the end. I mean, I had a feeling when I kind of finished most of it in September, and just a real feeling of satisfaction of having done it. It's something I'd wanted to do, my whole career, is write a book. And I know a lot of friends who have done it and talked about the experience. And it was just something that, I had always wanted to do, and I worked really hard. I have a cat that wakes me up every day at 4 a.m. And so to be fed. And so I would get up and feed the cat and then write from like 4 to 6 or 7. And so a whole summer of doing that was very strange. So getting to the end and just kind of putting the finishing touches on the bulk of the book was really rewarding. But in a less like personally, less about me. I mean, I just really enjoyed talking to all the people I got a chance to talk to. Like, I never would have had a reason to call like Randy Wolf or, Juan Pierre or Orlando Hudson or just, all these guys who had just great memories of Kershaw, but just great like perspective on baseball. And, so just getting to connect with some of these people. Actually, I'll tell you, I know I'm going long, but there was one guy in particular who I really, really liked talking to. His name was Dave Previosi. He played with Kershaw when Kershaw was in rookie ball in Vero Beach. And Kershaw was 18 years old, and Previosi was like a 23-year-old guy out of Boston College. He threw like 75 miles an hour. He was like very aware that he had no chance in baseball, but he really enjoyed the summer he spent, kind of like getting a chance to be a professional and to, live a version of the dream. And he was so impressed with how, Clayton Kershaw and Preston Mattingly, Don's son, who's now the assistant general manager of the Phillies, the way they conducted himself. And he was really he followed Kershaw's career all along the way. This guy, he left baseball and got a job, working in Boston or whatever. And when I talked to him, he asked me, he's like, "Hey, if you talk to Clayton, can you ask him if he remembers me?" And so I said, "Hey, I talked to this guy." And Kershaw like looked at the ground and he was like, "That guy went to Boston College, right?" And he like told a little story about him. And when I texted this guy, Dave Perviosa, he just seemed like so touched, and that like he still, that Kershaw remembered him, and he had played like a small part, with this person. And so it's just like little things like that happened a lot along the way that I found to be really enjoyable.
That's awesome. Where can you get the book, Andy? Tell our viewers and our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. Wherever you buy books, your local indie bookstore, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, bookshop.org. I don't have a preference. I was told to try and spread it out as much as possible. So like wherever you feel comfortable buying books, buy it.
That is the quote of the year so far for Dodgers territory. Andy McCullough, where can I get your book? Wherever you buy books. Just, wherever.
It's
just
true.
where you buy books.
Where the place that you go to buy books is the place I would like you to buy this book.
Andy McCullough, tremendous job. Congratulations. I look forward to reading it. Thank you for taking the time to be here on Dodgers territory and your insight on the great Kershaw, the last of his kind and the burden of greatness. Thank you so much, Andy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
All right, Andy McCullough with The Athletic. And Clint, it is now time for Last Licks. And we have a special pup. And this dog actually, his name is Also. And he actually has a home, but unfortunately he was just diagnosed with cancer. So we are trying to raise some funds to help get him as comfortable as possible and get him the medication that he needs to try to, prolong his life as much as possible. So let's take a look at him. There he is, Also chomping on a bully stick. You can help us out by going to guidrysguardian.org. Any amount, $5, $3, $500, whatever you can do to help, because obviously vet costs are huge, and we're trying to see what we can do to help him extend his life. He was a dog that was rescued through my organization. We got him up to Canada into a forever home, and now let's help him extend his life if we can.
Yeah, help any way you guys can. There's another adorable pupper on this show.
No, he's such a good boy. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, right? Are we good? Andy McCullough was fun. I appreciate it. By the way, Dave Roberts is going to be on Foul Territory tomorrow. So make sure you check that out. Dave Roberts, Dodgers skipper on Foul Territory. Clint has Thirsty Thursday tonight on All Dodgers. Join Clint over there. You can subscribe, you can like on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you like what we're doing, check us out and help us out too. Go to YouTube. You can subscribe to Foul Territory and like what we do. And Clint and I will be back on Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, one quick ask, guys. If you guys can go and leave a review and a rating on those podcast platforms, this is something that really does help us out. Boost us in the algorithm and all that. And, of course, subscribe to Foul Territory. Bye.
Bye.